Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a fundamental question that shapes how the modern web feels. How do we get that instant, real-time communication we all expect? Well, it all comes down to a classic showdown: WebSockets versus HTTP.
Yeah, seriously, have you ever stopped to think about that? Your chat messages just pop up, but a web page has that little loading spinner. It's a simple question, but the answer gets right to the heart of how the internet works under the hood. It all comes down to two totally different ways of talking online.
Let's use an analogy. Think of standard web browsing, using HTTP, as being like sending a letter through the Postal Service. You send a request, you wait, and eventually you get a single reply back. That's it. WebSockets, on the other hand, are way more like a phone call. You make the connection one time, and then you have this open line where you can talk back and forth freely, instantly. So this brings us to the two technologies at the center of our story. In one corner, you've got the heavyweight champion, the protocol that built the web, HTTP. And in the other corner, you have the nimble challenger built for pure speed, WebSocket. So first up is HTTP, and it is the absolute workhorse of the web. I mean, its main job for decades has been fetching documents. Your browser asks for a web page, the server sends it, and then, and this is key, the connection closes. It's clean, it's reliable, and it's stateless, which just means the server completely forgets about you the second it sends the file. And then you've got the challenger, WebSocket. This protocol was invented for a totally different reason. It's designed to open that phone line we talked about, a persistent two-way street that just stays open. This means both you and the server can send data to each other whenever you want, with practically zero delay. Okay, so now that we've met the contenders, let's put them side by side. How do these two fundamentally different approaches really compare when you get down to the details?
Now, this table right here, this lays out the trade-offs perfectly. You can see WebSockets are built for speed, right? They've got super low latency and very little overhead after that initial connection because the line is just always on. But that always-on connection makes them a bit more complicated to scale up. HTTP, because it's stateless, is way easier to scale. You just throw more servers at the problem. But it's way less efficient for real-time stuff because you have to start a new connection and send all this extra data, these headers, with every single request.
All right, so that's the theory. But how does this actually play out in the real world? When do developers decide to use one over the other? Let's get practical. Imagine we're building a modern chat app from scratch. We're going to need a few different things, right? Some actions happen just once, like logging in, but other things, like the actual messages, have to happen in the blink of an eye. And this is the perfect example of how these two aren't really enemies, they're collaborators. For things like logging in or changing your profile picture, you just use a standard HTTP request. It's a simple one-and-done transaction. But for the core feature, the actual chatting, for sending and receiving those messages instantly, you open up a WebSocket. So, the big takeaway here is pretty clear. It's all about using the right tool for the right job. You're going to reach for HTTP for all the standard web stuff, loading pages, images, making basic API calls. But the second you need that instant two-way conversation, we're talking livestock tickers, multiplayer games, and of course, chat apps, that's when WebSockets get to shine. But just when everyone got comfortable with this idea, a new, much faster version of HTTP came along, HTTP/2, and it sparked a huge debate in the developer world. And this was the question on everyone's mind. HTTP/2 is so much more efficient. It can handle tons of requests over a single connection, and it even lets the server push stuff to you before you ask for it. So people wondered, did HTTP finally evolve enough to make WebSockets totally obsolete? And at first, a lot of very smart people were convinced the answer was yes. You saw comments just like this one all over places like Stack Overflow, basically arguing that HTTP/2 could now handle pretty much everything a WebSocket could. But it turns out there was a really critical difference that people soon pointed out. You see, HTTP/2's server push feature sends resources to the browser's cache. It's like preloading an image so it's ready later. A WebSocket message, though, sends data directly into your running application's code. It's a huge distinction. And so, after a few years of real-world use and a whole lot of debate, the verdict is in, and it's a clear one. WebSockets are absolutely not obsolete. They are here to stay. At the end of the day, they were just designed for different jobs. HTTP/2 is about making websites load faster. WebSockets are about creating a live data stream straight to your app. In fact, they work so well together that there's now an official standard for running WebSocket connections over an HTTP/2 connection, giving you the best of both worlds.
So while the big showdown has kind of settled into a peaceful partnership, the evolution of the web, as you know, never stops. And it leaves us with one final thought to chew on. With even newer technologies like HTTP/3 and web transport now on the scene, how will our quest for an even faster, more seamless real-time web continue to change everything?